We are currently in a time in American politics where trans rights are under attack, trans history is being intentionally erased, and there is a particular criminalization of trans people in sports. And you are considered, one of the trans pioneers in sports, so I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit more about your experience of being, like this incredible historical character in this paradoxical time of making history when history is being erased and being attacked.
Thank you for doing that. I mean, it's hard. I feel very, very fortunate and very blessed. Like, I think when we talk about trans people in general, let me just be blunt. Trans people in general, we are consistently victims, right? And I'm not to say that there aren't many of us who are victimized in very many ways. We're literally in the crosshairs, right, of this administration, often in communities in general. So I don't want to also be like, I'm cool, everything's fine. It's not. That's not a reality. But I think, in particular, when we think about the trans narrative of like this loneliness and like lack of acceptance, acceptance has actually been a big part of my life, and in particular in my sport. I don't think, unless you've been in boxing gyms itself, it is a very tight-knit community. It is, whether you've been an amateur boxer, or you've just trained in a gym, or you're a professional world champion, everyone trains together. It's intergenerational. I've been in boxing for going 23 years, so people saw me grow up, and it's because people saw me at a very young age, know who I am, know that I love the sport more than anything, and that I was willing to risk something they knew that I loved, and they had a connection with and an understanding with. Even if they don't understand that I'm trans, they understand the desire to fight and to want to fight at any regards. And that has made me, even with people who've fallen away in my life, I would say my day-to-day life in time with boxing is like pretty much like everyone else. Like, I go to the gym, I'm trained, I get to spar hard, I'm consistently enjoy the erotic camaraderie that I have, and I think like that has been one of my biggest shields, even as we're trying to navigate the current political environment, when we're still navigating sporting environment in general, of like how do you get licensed out. It's actually been a lot of people in the boxing community who are like, we want to see you fight. Like, when I had my pro debut, the amount of coaches, boxers, refs that came up to me to be like, show them what you have, we're excited. Like, they were genuinely happy, and even as I'm waiting for my next fight, they're genuinely excited for me to get back in the ring, because there's this human connection, and I think that's why in particular they're targeting sports so much. And let's be honest, we're trans men, trans boys, we're kind of like just the casualties in their attacks, specifically against trans girls and trans women, when they actually don't give a fuck about women's sports in general. But I think and this is me as someone who loves sports, I think there is such a cultural importance to sports, and if we look back on all social justice movements throughout the world, like, there was always, you had the Muhammad Ali's, you had Nelson Mandela, who had been a boxer in his youth, who used particularly rugby to unite South Africa post-apartheid. Like, this is a place where people can come together from all walks of life and get behind one specific thing, and I really think that they understand there's danger in that, because they don't talk about, with the trans girls and trans women, I've had conversations with a number of them, they never talk about the fact that they have supporting teammates, that they have coaches who willingly coach them. And even while, yes, there is resistance and there are bigots throughout it, they never want to highlight the girls and the women who are like, I don't have a problem competing with you. That's my teammate. I'm fine with that. I have no problem. They don't want to highlight because they want to make it seem like it's an issue that is harming the people participating in it, when actually you talk to the vast majority of people who are participating in it, and they just see another person who's a competitor, and they want to beat them because they want to beat the best, and that's it.
Thank you. You touched on so many wonderful points, and I think that it's important to remind ourselves, like, of these joyous moments, right? Because sports is meant to be fun. You know, it's a game. You know, for many it's a competition, right? But it's meant to bring us together, like you said. And we've used sports throughout history and in movements to empower us. You know, not just physically but mentally as well. You know, in these attacks, I like to think of the youth. You know, the children that are being affected by this, specifically trans girls, right? Because they're just trying to play a game with their friends. They're just trying to have a good time, build their confidence, you know, build their sportsmanship, teamwork, and truly that's what they're taking away. And so I think it is so important to highlight, you know, those positive roles the sports have in our lives. As someone who, you know, didn't have the chance to play sports because I grew up as a little boy, and I think that had I been given the opportunity to be myself at a younger age, I may have played sports. Because I love water sports. I love water skiing, jet skiing. I was just surfing in Taiwan last week, and it was incredible. So I truly think that sports are something that everyone deserves access to, and you could not be more right as to why they're targeting it.
Can I add something real quick?
Please.
I think in general, the sports conversation gets particularly really wrapped up in opportunities of trans girls and trans women are robbing,
Dominating.
dominating. Though you look at the stats, and maybe they're just great because they're trans, not because of their trans. You know, and also we're not seeing this level of domination that they're talking about. But it's talked about as robbing opportunities from girls and women with people who aren't supplying opportunities for girls and women.
Call them out.
Yeah, you want to have opportunities, then pay them. I can tell you, as someone who was a female athlete in a sport that didn't have much financial backing, my family had to help. I had to work multiple jobs. Like, a trans woman was the least of my concerns. Like, paying my bills was way more concerning when I was trying to go for the Olympic trials. And there's this fixation on like the professionalization of sports. Even though the vast majority of people who participate in sports never get anywhere near, sometimes even a high school team. And people who play in recs play together. I honestly don't believe, and this is like my unpopular hot take opinion, I don't think that when kids are young, they should be even gendered. Learning to play together, like the point of sports is teaching children very important skills of being disciplined, of being able to work with each other, work with people who are different than you, be in your body, be physical, the cognition of sports. All these things are really important that we're losing it for the fact of like, one, I mean, how many female athletes are making $1 million? Very few. How many make even 6 figures? Very few. WNBA's finally gotten up a little bit from massive involvement with the NCAA, but like these things have taken so long. Like they're fixated on things that aren't even a reality and missing the fact like every child should get an opportunity to have fun in their body. It doesn't matter what their gender is, what their ability level is, how even good they are at it. You know, I see sometimes when I'm walking with Little League, parents going nuts, and I'm like, they're 8, like, let them just have fun. You know, I think we are so fixated on making sure that person will become a millionaire and will make a ton of money that we're missing the fact that 95% of people in sports won't even get to the collegiate level. And that doesn't mean that sports aren't important because you won't be at the high level. We are robbing not only trans kids, we are robbing cisgender kids the ability to be amongst different people. And also, do you think that, like you said, you didn't feel comfortable playing in sports because you were viewed as a boy being in that? What if that was
locker rooms? Men's locker? I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Men's locker rooms? No thanks.
If all that was removed, how many cisgender boys and girls don't feel comfortable going into a sport because they don't feel safe in that environment? That should be the priority. It should not be about some boogeyman. They always name them as like men taking over in women's sports, like they're not teenagers. But these boogeyman taking sports when like the vast majority of girls at 13 stop competing because this world doesn't see females athletics as being relevant at all. You know. So I'll get off my soapbox, but as someone who was like,
I could not agree more.
It drives me nuts that we're really missing, you know, what is the saying, the forest for the trees? Is that it? Oh, you're not, okay. You know, or in this argument about the fact is every child, regardless of ability, regardless of any sort of identifications, should have the freedom to want to explore in a sport of their choosing.
Yeah.
Point blank.
And sports are not meant to be fair. There are people who we celebrate, Michael Phelps, who have have an advantage against other people because of the way his body is, which is very unaverage and extraordinary. Could not agree more. Thank you so much. I want to just ask you one final quick question. What is a hopeful message for the future?
You know, this is history, right? Like, this is the struggle. This is consistently to move forward. But I'm going to consistently go back to the fact we're watching such a backlash because we're winning. That's it. Point blank is they know they're losing. So the narrative has to change. The propaganda has to intensify. We are, even as I'm saying about the boringness of history repeating itself, the fact is it's not history. We have more knowledge, we have more connection, we have more access to information than we've ever had. And there is so much power in that no matter what they do, no matter what bullshit propaganda they put out trying to vilify us, there's 20 other counter arguments for people being able to connect to a direct human experience. And ultimately, it will always be our connection, our relationships to each other, and our human experiences that will make this world a better place. And we can't stop fighting for that because we all deserve it.
Yes. Thank you so much. I could not agree more. Wonderful. On that, I just want to close by saying that we are not losing this cultural war, as many people love to mention. We're winning. That's why they're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars against us, because we are winning. We're right here. We did it. Thank you, Pat. Wonderful.